Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Yes, I know how long it has been. Leave me be. Today is another what if, and this is one I'm super excited for. And this what if is, what if the great journey never happened? We're going to be from the perspective of Leaf Paw, and it's a longer one. It's longer than the other two what ifs I've written. So I didn't write this part, I'm sorry. Anyway, spoilers for, not really spoilers for The Prophecies Begin, but if you haven't read it, I would be careful. And of course, spoilers for the first 3 books of the New Prophecy. So let us get into it. Yeah. Moons of struggle had passed, and everything was falling apart. Today was the day when the clans finally split up. No one could come to a solid decision on where they should go, except for the 5 remaining cats who had received Midnight's prophecy. And eventually, everyone had just given up. Why should the cats have to leave their home for generations when they had a right to live there? Days had passed since cats had started leaving, and Leaf Paw was already exhausted, trying to convince her clanmates to stay and trying to keep her family together was just so difficult. It started with Ashfur, his tail swishing irritably as he stalked away from the clans forever. They were falling apart at the seams, and poor Firestar was desperate to keep the remains of his clan together as he tried to find ThunderClan and anyone else who needed shelter. Mostly WindClan and ShadowClan cats, a new home. But even Firestar didn't have the strength and power to make his cats stay. First Ashfur, then Dustpelt and Grieving, Kitless Fur and Cloud. Then Mousefur and Rainwhisker and Sootfur. Then Brambleclaw. That one was especially devastating. Not to Leaf Paw, but her poor sister. Squirrel Paw was torn between the cat she loved and her family. Leaf Paw felt Squirrel Paw's anguish in every heartbeat as she watched Brambleclaw pad away from Sunning Rocks, growling that he and his sister were going to find a new home somewhere. Squirrel Paw begged him to stay, but he refused, only offering her to come with him. She cried, and feeling the anguish coming off of her sister, Leaf Paw almost thought Squirrel Paw was going to go with Brambleclaw, but she chose her family. The feelings of betrayal Leaf Paw felt radiating from Squirrel Paw as Brambleclaw stalked away forever made her want to cry. As cats began to leave all 4 clans in droves, Firestar had finally given up trying to keep them together. He offered all cats a place to stay at Sunning Rocks and wherever they would go after Sunning Rocks was no longer safe. But he didn't force anyone to stay. It was their choice, after all. Eventually, staring down at his crumbling clan and the refugees it was taking in, Firestar declared they were going to Two Leg Place. Many cats protested, but they had nowhere else to go, and the former kitty pet Firestar not only knew his way around Two Leg Place, but also had friends there who could help them. It was the ideal, and really only, place to go. So the cats set off, weaving their way past monsters and avoiding Two Legs until they reached their goal, Two Leg Place. After that, it was slow going. They wove past the streets, ate what little prey they could find, and slept each night under a pitch-black sky. The stars were gone, hidden behind the bright 2-leg lights. And with the vanishing of the stars, there went Leaf Paw's hope that StarClan was still watching over them. But she didn't complain. She just kept on walking on the hard stone beside Cinderpelt, caring for her clan. Doing her duty. Days passed, and eventually they found a large stone-clearing Firestar called an alley that was big enough for the cats to call home. Nowhere near ideal, but it was something. At least there was shelter in the crumbling piles of stone and wood, and rats, mice, and rabbits were so abundant that Leaf Paw almost felt what it was like to be full again. Days passed, and their little camp started to come together. They were no longer a clan. Not really, but they acted as one. It was exhausting work. Leafpaw was covered in dirt and rock dust, as was every cat, and there wasn't nearly enough shelter or herbs for everyone. Infections and sickness from tainted water or unseen stones in the praise fur ran wild. And with only 3 medicine cats, Leafpaw, Cinderpelt, and Mothwing, for so many cats with so little herbs, it was immensely difficult to keep cats alive. And slowly but surely, Frostfur, Tallstar, Mistyfoot, Goldenflower, and Tall Poppy slowly died of mixes of green cough and infections and even the smallest of wounds. It was horrible, and Leafpaw simply couldn't bear to watch those poor cats struggle for life, wailing for someone to help them. Despite her loyalty to her duty as a medicine cat, she simply couldn't watch those poor cats suffer without her being able to save them. Leafpaw ran from the scene of Goldenflower's demise and buried her nose in her mother, sobbing into Sandstorm's shoulder as the pale ginger she-cat whispered soothing words to her daughter. More time passed, and they struggled to find herbs. It seemed the barren landscape of Two Leg Place was completely empty of anything green, and Leafpaw often wondered how two legs healed each other without a single herb around. One day, however, she was scouting around the more green spots in Two Leg Place, quite far from the former clan cat's camp, digging through a Two Leg's leafy garden, when a voice startled her. "What you looking for?" Leafpaw's head shot up, and she found a fat tortoiseshell kitty pet beaming down at her from the fence to the Two Leg garden, a soft pink collar with a giant golden bell around her neck. Leafpaw growled softly at being bothered, but she reminded herself that not all kitty pets were bad. I wonder if I'll ever see Cody again. She gave the kitty pet her best polite smile. I'm looking for herbs. For my clan. Herbs? Clan? The kitty pet tilted her head. Leafpaw sighed softly. Yes, herbs. They're plants that can cure ailments. You haven't seen anything like that around here, have you? Well, the she-cat tisked. My housefolk grow lots of things in their garden. I'm not sure what any of them are, but they might be of use to you. Leafpaw nodded her gratitude and continued her search, assuming the conversation was over. She was wrong. What's a clan? Leafpaw started, turning to see the kitty pet smiling at her from less than a tail length away. She flinched. A clan is a group of cats who live and care and hunt for each other. We're kind of falling apart right now, though. The kitty pet blinked in shock as Leafpaw found a small patch of tansy and began to pull the healing plant from the ground. She shuffled her paws for a moment, then laughed. Oh, phew! I thought your housefolk were abusing you or something. For you to be looking for healing plants and covered in all that dirt. But you don't have any housefolk, so it's okay. Leafpaw rolled her eyes. Well, she's right about one thing. It's definitely okay I don't have housefolk. She dropped the tansy. I suppose I wouldn't want housefolk anyway. Leafpaw scooped up the leaves once more and started burrowing around for other herbs. Why not? I just don't, she mumbled past the tansy in her jaws, catching a whiff of the scent of borage. Unlike a lot of my clanmates, I don't see much wrong with being a kitty pet. Not after I met a great kitty pet who saved my life, but it's just not the life for me. When Leafpaw turned around, the kitty pet was standing right there, her orange eyes wide and shining. You met a kitty pet and they saved your life? She gasped. Tell me everything, now! Leafpaw sighed and dropped the tansy. Her name was Cody. She and I were trapped in a two-leg encampment together. I was miserable, but Cody kept me eating, drinking, and grooming. She convinced me to try and get out of that horrid place. She gave me hope that I'd go home again. They were going to take us away, somewhere where I would never see my clan or my family again. But then my sister showed up. She saved us. It wasn't safe to go back home, so Cody came to our camp for a while, and she was amazing. Our medicine cat, my mentor, had so much to do taking care of the clan. And Ferncloud was just so tired. So Cody looked after Ferncloud's kit while she slept. She chewed up food for him, kept him warm, played games with him. Leafpaw sniffled, remembering the kind tabby kitty pet in her warm face. I was hoping she'd stay in the clan and come with us when we went, or wherever we were going. But she left the night before the clans broke up. I hope to see her again. The kitty pet tapped her chin with one black-orange paw. I don't know anyone named Cody. Sorry. Leafpaw shook her head. I'm pretty sure she lives on the other side of this two-leg place. A moment of silence passed, broken up only by the sound of the wind in the leaves and the snapping of borage stems. Then, why did the clans break up? Leafpaw dropped the board she just picked. Two legs were destroying our home in the forest. No one could agree on what to do, so we just broke up. The clan, if you can call it that, I'm living with in the two-leg place is what remains. The clan my father led, ThunderClan, is there except for, of course, for the cats who left, plus any refugees who wanted a caring group to stay with instead of having to fend for themselves. Mostly WindClan and ShadowClan cats, but a few from RiverClan, too. As Leafpaw finished speaking, her nose twitched. Horsetail. She left her herbs where they were as she followed the scent to the patch of horsetail. The kitty pet followed. So you're living here now? In the thicker part of the two-leg place, yeah. Leafpaw meowed between stems. We've got a little alley. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. As Leafpaw finished collecting the horsetail and began to prepare to go home, the kitty pet spoke once more. Do you guys need any help? Leafpaw shook her head. Thank you for the offer, but we're fine. We've survived much worse. When she finished speaking, Leafpaw gathered up all her herbs and prepared to leave. Well, okay, the kitty pet mumbled. Then, in a louder voice, she added, Come back here soon! I'm going to gather some of those leaves and get my friends to do it, too. My name is Skipper, she called as Leafpaw patted away. Leafpaw shot a smile back over her shoulder. Thank you, Skipper. My name is Leafpaw. She trotted until she was out of eyeshot of Skipper, then took off into a sprint. She ran all the rest of the way back to the makeshift camp. When Leafpaw skidded to a stop in the shabby alley, she was immediately greeted with a whirlwind of soft fur, and two paws, one dark ginger, one white, enveloping her in a hug. Leafpaw laughed and pushed her sister off with a soft purr. I'm sorry, Squirrelpaw mewed. I just missed you. Leafpaw smiled. I missed you too. Her fiery sister stood up taller and smiled, and Leafpaw grinned back. Leafpaw! A voice called from farther up the alley, and then Cinderpelt came limping over. I wondered where you... Did you get all of this by yourself? Leafpaw's mentor gaped in shock at the leaves Leafpaw had dropped on the ground. Leafpaw nodded, grinning ear to ear. Where in StarClan did you get all of this? Leafpaw hesitated, then sighed. There was no point hiding the truth. I went pretty far out, farther than I should have, I'll admit, into where the two-leg place starts to thin out in the dens of gardens. There I found bunches of herbs. I'm just sorry I couldn't find what we really need. She sighed, glancing to the cloth-covered den where the cat sick with green cough lay. Cinderpelt gently nudged her apprentice. Everything counts. I worry the two legs will be mad that we took their herbs. They won't be able to heal each other without them. They won't even notice, a voice chimed in, and Leafpaw looked over to see her father, lying in a heap with Sandstorm and One Whisker. Two legs have their own pasty stuff for healing. It tastes worse than regular herbs, but works wonders. They only grow herbs because they think they look nice. Leafpaw was, once again, reminded of her father's kitty pet heritage. It had always shocked her, even now, that her strong-willed, confident father had once been a fat, pampered kitty pet. Cats' heads had been poking up from heaps of blankets and out of stacks of rock and wood since Leafpaw had returned, but Cinderpelt seemed not to notice them. She faced Firestar, looked him directly in the eye, and said, I know this is against the warrior code, but we're incredibly desperate right now. Can we possibly find a kitty pet who could give us the two-leg medicine? There were several gasps of shock and outrage, and even Leafpaw was surprised at Cinderpelt's boldness. Absolutely not, Blackstar snarled from his spot in the shadows. Mothwing came bounding from the muddy, blanket-covered shack they called the medicine den, skidding to a stop by Leafpaw and Cinderpelt. The golden she-cat gazed confidently around at the cats surrounding her. Cinderpelt has a point. You all value the warrior code, and for some odd reason, she hesitated. So do I, but we're barely a clan at this point, and those cats in there will die without the care they need. We're not going to find the herbs they need before more cats die, and I believe breaking the warrior code is worth it if it means saving lives. Several cats hissed insults at Mothwing, but most looked at her with eyes shining, and a bout of loud coughing erupting from the medicine den was enough to soften even the most furious eyes in the crowd. Something had to be done, and Mothwing had a point. If they didn't get the two-leg medicine, chances are those sick cats would die. Cats I love will die. Sorreltail. Firestar stood up and, for the first time in a while, looked commanding. I understand everyone's apprehension about this. I'm wary of doing this myself, but Mothwing has a very good point. If we don't get the sick cats in this camp care soon, they will die, and then it will spread, and soon there will be nothing left of the clans. Someone in the shadows snarked the age-old phrase, once a kitty pet, always a kitty pet, but no one could see who it was, and no other cats were protesting Firestar's decision. Not even the irritable Blackstar, who seemed so tired lately he could barely stand, let alone lead. Okay, this is happening. Leafpaw sighed softly. StarClan, if you're still watching, please let those sick cats heal. Firestar tapped his chin with his paw. Now to find a kitty pet to ask. I suppose we could find my sister, or Smudge, or Cody. Leafpaw added softly. Oh, Cody, yes, Firestar nodded. I just hope they will be able to help us. Mudclaw stood up taller, his tail swishing. I can send out cats to find them. No, don't. Firestar shook his head. I appreciate your initiative, Mudclaw, but only select cats will recognize the kitty pets we're looking for. He thought for a moment. I will look for Smudge myself, and Cloudtail can go find Princess. He knows where she lives. And for Cody, he gazed around the crowd. I would send Leafpaw, but I imagine the medicine cats need all the help they can get right now. Cinderpelt nodded, pulling her apprentice closer with a swish of her dark gray tail. I'll go! Squirrelpaw jumped forward, her puffy tail flicking and her eyes bright. I know what Cody looks like, and better yet, she knows me. I'm sure she'll be more willing to help if it's someone she knows. Leafpaw smiled at her sister's initiative. She didn't doubt Squirrelpaw could find Cody and get her to help, but she also felt like she'd mostly volunteered to go because she felt it would be an adventure. Squirrelpaw was always up for an adventure. Firestar smiled. Sure, Squirrelpaw, you can go. He stretched until his tail trembled. All right, no point in waiting. Let's head out now. He bounded out, with Squirrelpaw struggling to race after her father on her tiny legs. Cloudtail, who had been watching curiously beside Brightheart and Whitepaw, yawned and padded slowly out after his uncle and cousin, his fluffy white tail swishing. Leafpaw watched them go, her ears pricked, and hoped to the stars appearing in the darkening sky above that they would be safe, and they would return with the medicine they needed to save the sick cats. Hours passed, and Leafpaw finally managed to soothe the sick cats enough to lie down in her nest of muddy, shredded fabric and try to rest. Of course, the noisy two-leg place never yielded enough comfort to sleep, but Leafpaw just barely managed to slip into a fitful slumber. When Leafpaw awoke, she shook herself and trotted out into the main alley, hoping Firestar, Cloudtail, and Squirrelpaw were back by now. To her disappointment, they were not back yet. She sent a silent prayer to StarClan that they were safe, then padded over to the ramshackle freshco pile. It consisted of several muddy rats, a couple mice, and a single plump raven. Leafpaw scooped up the raven and padded back to the medicine den. She dropped it at the foot of Cinderpelt and Mothwing's nests, then trotted back out. She breathed in the musty dawn air, then padded out of the camp, nodding to Thornclaw as he came back in from an early morning hunt, a stone dust-covered rabbit in his jaws. When Leafpaw was back in the two-leg place, she broke into a run and bounded across the two-leg place to Skipper's two-leg den. She had no idea why she was really coming back, but Skipper was a funny, curious kitty pet, and she had promised to help Leafpaw with herbs, so she supposed it was a good idea to come back, even if she hadn't been as fond of Skipper as she honestly was. Leafpaw reached Skipper's garden, hopped the fence, and surveyed the garden from its center. She eyed the two-legged den nervously, then tentatively called out, "Skipper?" Leafpaw caught a whiff of a familiar scent, and then Skipper was racing out of the shadows of her two-legged den and straight into Leafpaw. Leafpaw let out a little shout and leaped back, and Skipper took a step back as well. Sorry, Leafpaw. I was just super excited that you came. If I'm being honest, I wasn't really expecting you to actually show up." Skipper laughed awkwardly. Since their last meeting, her two legs had added a pale pink ribbon to her tail, tied into a giant bow. Leafpaw smiled jokingly at Skipper. "Well, you did promise me some herbs." Skipper did an odd little sidestep hop. Right, I got those. Let me show you." She turned and bounded over to a bush that grew close to the den wall. Leafpaw followed, ears pricked. Skipper shoved a paw under the bush and heaved it up, revealing a pile of muddy leaves and a couple wilting flowers. Leafpaw's initial excitement waned. The flowers were marigold, just what they needed, but the marigold was so crumbled and muddy it was hard to believe it would heal even a single infected wound. Leafpaw almost told Skipper the truth, but then she looked over to see the kitty pets gazing at her with her eyes wide and shining. "Did I do good? Did I?" Leafpaw sighed and nodded. "This is just what we needed, Skipper. Thank you." Skipper let out an excited squeal, and Leafpaw smiled. She crawled forward into the bush and started grabbing the leaves. "Oh, and I forgot to tell you," Skipper added thoughtfully as Leafpaw gathered. "I found something really weird but really cool, and I want to tell everyone because it's so weird and I want to know what it is." Leafpaw glanced back at Skipper, dropping the plants. "Something weird?" "Yeah, it's super cool. Well, it'd be better if I showed you." Skipper trotted over and hopped onto the fence, beckoning Leafpaw. "Come on!" Leafpaw struggled out from under the bush and raced after Skipper, leaping the fence behind her new friend and bounding after her through the thunderpaths and dens of the two-legged place. Eventually they reached a short alley, and at the other end was a tree. Leafpaw blinked at it. "This is it? It's just a tree." Skipper nodded. "Go closer. It's super weird." Leafpaw crept closer to the tree, feeling something weird in her chest. Hope? Apprehension? Curiosity? She wasn't sure. Leafpaw reached the foot of the tree and gazed up into its leafless branches. A breeze whistled over it, and the branches trembled. Then it turned into crystal. Actual crystal! She gazed with shining eyes at it, and as she did, a wind that smelled of stars blew over the tree, shaking the branches, and as if by magic, leaves made of stardust appeared on the tree, the leaves glowing with starshine. Leafpaw let out a bated breath. She took a tiny step forward, wondering if what she hoped it was the truth. "Please, dear StarClan, if you're listening, let it be true. Let this work. Please." Leafpaw crouched and gently touched her nose to the glittering trunk of the tree. "Please, StarClan." She waited a long, quiet moment, but nothing happened. Leafpaw was about to give up and finally admit StarClan was gone forever, and she was dreaming when a wind blew over her, bringing with it the sound of twinkling lights. Her ear twitched, and she looked up, opening her eyes. 2 cats stood in front of her, and neither was Skipper. One was bluish-gray, her paws, chest, and muzzle fading into paler silver. And the other... "We've chosen you to find us here, Leafpaw," Spotted Leaf mewed. "Only few chosen cats can see the moon tree, so no cats may enter our sacred hunting grounds." "Me?" Leafpaw gasped out. But I didn't find it. Skipper did." The cats of StarClan purred softly. "We could not reach you in your camp," the blue-gray she-cat said warmly, "so we led Skipper here, so that she would lead you here. We chose you, Leafpaw." Leafpaw closed her eyes, letting the feeling of pride wash over her. StarClan had chosen her. The spirit cats began to slip away, backing up and vanishing like mist in the sun. "Don't go," Leafpaw fought frantically, trying to grab onto the wisps of her ancestors that were rapidly fading. "Don't worry," a voice whispered into her ears. "If you ever need us, just come back to this tree. StarClan will be waiting for you. Don't worry." Leafpaw took a soft breath, comforted, and closed her eyes. She felt herself slipping and falling into a void, and then landing on hard stone. Leafpaw gasped, the breath shaken out of her, and opened her eyes. She was back in the alley. Leafpaw struggled to her feet and found Skipper and several other plump kitty pets staring wide-eyed at her. "What?" "Well," Skipper began awkwardly, "you were lying down with your nose pressed into a weird-looking tree, and I thought that was pretty weird already, but then you started talking to yourself, and I was like, what? Is she crazy? So I called some of my friends over, and, well, here we are." "Anyway, what was that?" Leafpaw took a deep, calm breath. "It's hard to explain. Just know it's good news." Leafpaw stood up and began to pat away. She smiled at Skipper as she passed, and it seemed to calm her and her friends. When she was out of the line of sight of the kitty pet gang, Leafpaw took off running, feeling as if a flower of light and hope was blooming inside of her chest. "StarClan is still here," Leafpaw thought as she raced along, her paws spread by the breeze. "We're going to be okay." Alrighty, well, hey everyone. That is the entire story. I am definitely going to be writing a part 2, so stick around for that. Oh my god. Sorry if the quality of the audio in this clip and the previous are any worse. I'm recording this in a completely different room. Sorry. Anyway, well, thank you all for watching. More videos coming soon, hopefully. And I will see you guys next time. Bye. I worry the two legs will be mad that we took their herbs. They won't be able to heal each other without them. They won't even notice. No, why am I British? Mothwing came bounding from the muddy, blanket-covered stack that they call... Oh, my God. "We've chosen you, love." I'm giving Spotted Leaf a French accent. No, not a French accent. A British accent, and I don't care. Because all villains have to be British in American movies. So Spotted Leaf has to be British as well. I don't care, she's British.